Ladies and gentlemen, we're at the front door show, and today we have a really special show today. It is a roundtable discussion with my invited guest on here. So, guys, I thank you guys for tuning in, and at the same time, I thank you all everybody for being excited because this is a very hot topic, and honestly, it's a very hot topic here. And we're going to discuss about salsa music and where it started. So if I could do a really quick hello from everybody. I know Tino will be the last one because he's not in his chair, but let the audience that's signing on right now, let them know who you are. So Edson, why don't you go first?
Youngest first.
Exactly.
Okay, well, my name is Edson Leonardo Cabrera Beitia. A lot of people know me here by Edson de Cuba. I'm currently living, well, I just moved to Indiana, but that was just a month ago. Since I've been in the States, I've been in Chicago, the Chicago area, okay? And I've been working with Angelo all these years. So I am from Cuba, from Villa Clara, middle of the country, the center of the country. I studied in Havana in the National Art School of Dance. I graduated in 2005. And right after that, I started my professional career in the company called Rakatan. With that company, I spent 4 years. And then I went to the National Contemporary Company in La Habana, the national company. I danced with them another 4 years or 5. And I became their principal dancer, many festivals, many shows, many things, many memories now. You know, it's in the past. And I moved to Chicago 2011, and I started doing Cuban dances in general. You know, the good thing about the National Art School in Cuba, we have a full spectrum of Cuban dances, going from modern, contemporary, Afro-Cuban, traditional dances, popular dances, everything about dance. I know not a lot, but a little bit of everything. So I'm willing to give whatever I know and whatever it works for today's meeting, and I'm gonna let you know to meet the rest of the starts that are here.
Fantastic. Angelo. So I will go ahead. I'm Josue. I'm the creative director of La Época. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. If you're just joining on, of course, go in the comments section and let us know what city and country you are watching and listening from. It's always exciting to know how many guests are watching and from where. It's wonderful. Again, my name is Josue. My last name is Joseph. If you go on the internet, on Google, and you Google my name, you will find many Josue Josephs. However, I'm the only one who is not in prison or jail. so welcome. It's love. It's not to laugh at, but it's all good. I'm just playing with you. Anyway, my father is Alfonso Panama. He was the bass player of Arsenio Rodriguez from Cuba, from the Machico, also with the Machito Orchestra, Tito Puente Orchestra in New York. He's one of the legends of the Palladium era. Worked with Johnny Pacheco, many of the orchestras. I grew up with many of the legends calling my home. I used to pick up the phone when I was a child, and Cachao or Puente or someone would say, "Hey, oye, hijo, ¿dónde está tu papá?" And I would say, "Oh, papá," you know, and this is how I grew up. For me, they were not famous when I was growing up. They were just part of the family. Many of these musicians came to the house, barbecues, eating spaghetti and meatballs at 5 o'clock in the morning. This was just the artist's life. But later on, I grew up and became professional as a musician, as a producer, songwriter, composer, and as a professional dancer. And now I live in Eastern Europe. And what I do is with La Época is I educate the world about Afro-Cuban music, about bachata, and about kizomba. It's a wonderful life, and it's a pleasure to share the stage with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Alex?
Well, my name is Alex Carmenates, also known as DJ Cubanito. I was born in Cuba, in the province of Camagüey, in a little town of Florida, Camagüey. Has rained a lot since I was born. And about when I was 10 years old, my parents brought me to the United States. So I grew up here in the United States, forgetting a little bit my roots. So of wanting to know and helping the rest of the world know about Cuban music, the Afro rhythms, and all that. So I've had the pleasure of writing for many magazines, journalist. I'm also a producer, DJ for over 40 years, DJ in many salsa clubs. As a matter of fact, I had an opportunity to experience the festivals in Europe. And it's amazing. What Josue said, it's absolutely true. The festivals in Europe, they blow away festivals here in the United States. And they have a lot of respect for the music, for Afro rhythms. I saw a lot of African bands when I was over there in Europe touring. So, you know, I today basically, I want to just add my ear to the discussion. I would like to talk about the roots of the genre that we're going to discuss today, which is salsa music. And yeah, so I was actually I went back. I had the opportunity back to Cuba and speak of the some of the players over there, and I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of artists, and of course I experienced the New York explosion here in the United States as well as a teenager. So hopefully I can bring a little bit of flavor to this discussion.
Okay. And Tino?
Unmute your mic.
Yep, it sure was.
Your mic is muted
I was
too.
trying. I have my air conditioner running, so I was trying to be. I was trying to be courteous. But my name is Tino. I am originally from Chicago, born and raised. I was born in Humboldt Park. My parents are actually. My mom is Puerto Rican. My dad is Mexican. Well, actually, they were born here too. But as far as ethnicity and all that nationality, that's where my roots are from. And I've been playing music since the early 90s, so I would say almost 30 years of performing. I've been performing professionally about 25 of those years, maybe a little bit more. During that time, I played with a group called Gallery 37 Latin Big Band. Excuse me, let me put my light back on. And with my time with Gallery 37 Latin Big Band, I studied various Latin percussion, and the history behind it with Don Skoog out of Oak Park, Illinois. He's one of the more knowledgeable percussion teachers here in the Chicago area. And then from there, I've been performing with the Orquesta Sabor Latino de los Hermanos Alvarez here in the Chicago area for about 15 years now, I think. And those guys, they play everything but salsa. That's what I always say. So a little bit of danzón, some cha-cha, lots of boleros, cumbia, porro, merecumbe, you know, stuff like that. So in all these years, and especially with the band leader Jaime Alvarez, he's that guy, you know, people. So through all my years, that's really where I picked up all my knowledge as far as the Latin music, where it has come from, the different styles, and how they play into what's going on today. And I think that's, for me, this is what I want to bring to the conversation is how does the styles from Cuba
Okay.
The buffering.
Got a disconnection.
So, and I'm all good, right? So, you know,
You're good.
okay,
You're
good.
good.
So I'm,
He's back. He's back.
he's back. You froze there.
All the styles from Cuba. What?
So what I want to try to bring to the conversation today is, with all the knowledge that I picked up from these, from all these guys that I've studied and played under all these years, how it relates to today's music, how it relates to how does son relate to salsa in today's music, and even from the 90s, 80s, 90s and on, how is it relating, how does reggaeton is actually not reggaeton, it's actually an African rhythm that we could discuss a little bit later, and I'll go into a little bit more detail as the conversation progresses.
So I want, and then thank you very much, guys. I'm the host today. I'm DJ Prieto for Fantastic Events. So, I am very much involved in the whole music scene that's happening here in Chicago. Been doing it now for the 29 years as far as Latin music, but in the music business, I've been doing it for 45 years. Reason why this discussion is happening today is I've always been asked by, anybody that gets in the scene here, where to start. I think Edson and I have communicated quite a bit about Cuban music, because we talk about the Cuban music because I'm doing a Cuban night here in Chicago. But more importantly, I remember Josua, he contacted me maybe about 8 years ago, I think was the first time that we communicated. And because of my last name, Prieto, he thought I was related to, I forgot who was the musician that you thought I was.
12 years ago, to correct you just a little bit.
All right. Time flies.
I thought you were, it's okay. I thought you were related to Lázaro Prieto, who was the bass player of Arsenio Rodriguez many years ago.
Right. And to find out that I am. After I told you that, I found out that I am. So that was kind of the discussion about the Cuban music, and in the extensive aspect of this music that I've been, because I started in house music first and went into the Latin music, is it always was coming up as Cuban music. Now, very hot subject about that, because, if Puerto Ricans will say started in New York, and then Colombians say this, and and one of the things that I'm going to first, I want to make sure that everybody understands something. When we're talking about this, we're talking about just like house music. And I'm going to say the first house track that basically was out there here in Chicago was 1985. But that was what a genre was called. But the culture was way before the actual, So I just want to make people understand there's a difference when we talk about the genre and the culture, because there's a definitely difference in that. And I want to make sure people understand that. And I think all you guys can agree with that, right?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's start off with what you believe is the history, or what you know is the history, and let's give your aspect of it. So Alex, let's start with you first of all.
all right. Thank you. So the first thing I'm going to say is that I've had these discussions before on roundtables and on interviews, and I've actually had people commented that I'm crazy. They've actually said, ese experto que tú tienes ahí no sabe nada. That expert you have there has no knowledge whatsoever of what it is. Excuse me. No, but I'm just going by what I've seen in Cuba and what I've heard the old guys, the old guys talk about. So before I start into the history, I just want to clear something real quick and start with that, because it's the premise of everything. Even the people around today, the people who supposedly started the salsa movement, the salsa culture, the people who coined the word salsa, they all agree, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but they all agree that, for lack of a better name, they came up with a name called salsa, which was a marketing thing. And the word salsa encompasses son, guaracha, rumba, guaguancó, cha-cha-cha, all those, and I'm probably missing a couple others. So let's just say, to be clear, that what we know today as salsa is a combination of all those genres. Am I correct or am I wrong?
Well, I would have to say that today, salsa means something different than what they wanted it to be back in the 70s and 60s, or in late 60s, early 70s. Because now, if you tell somebody salsa, they think son montuno, or however you want to classify the rhythm, but they think of what we know as salsa 70s through 90s. A lot of people, like, maybe even because I'm 43, so people that are in their 30s and 20s, you tell them salsa, they have no idea that cha-cha-cha might be under that umbrella. Do you get what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So back then that might have been true, but I think today salsa is its own specific genre now.
All right. So what I'm talking about is that in the 40s, 50s, 60 through 70, all the musicians, all the cats that were playing that stuff back then, they could have been playing guaguancó or charanga or son montuno or even boogaloo. So when the Fania concept came on board, which was how the word salsa was marketed, salsa, it encompasses all those genres, and that's what I'm talking about. Because you have to understand that, of course, the word was coined back then. It's not a new word. We've had salsa since the 70s. That's the word that we know, tropical music, since the 70s. So we're all good on that, right?
Yeah.
All right. So here's another thing. Let's say that hip hop. We all know that hip hop started here in the United States, right? Hip hop. But let's say that for some reason hip hop was converted into a style of music that could not be played anywhere. And so it goes underground and you can't play it. And none of the hip hop music can go to other countries, to anywhere. I mean, it's stopped. Hip hop music stopped. Okay. Now here, Alex Carbonates is in Cuba, and I'm gonna do hip hop because I love hip hop and I love it. But I'm going to call it Tumbiti Tumbiti. I'm going to give it another name, Tumbiti Tumbiti. But I'm going to play hip hop. It's the only way, that I can coin a new phrase to describe the music that I'm doing. And then I'm going to totally forget about the hip hop people in the United States. I'm going to forget about the Sugar Hill Gang, Curtis Blow, Africa Bambaataa, all the pioneers, Kool Herc, all those people. And I'm going to say, no. I started this here in Cuba right now. And perhaps some of the young people or some of the people around me who have never heard hip hop, they're going to say, coño, that is bad, tumbidi tumbidi. I love tumbidi tumbidi, because that I'm appropriating a style of music and making it something else. And to be honest with you, that's the way I feel about what happened in New York when they coined salsa and made it their own. They totally wanted to forget about Cuba because of the embargo, because none of those people had a voice anymore in the world. They couldn't go anywhere. And all of a sudden, then New York claims that salsa is invented by New Yorkers. Puerto Rico claims it is invented by Puerto Rico. Colombia, and that's where we're going with this, with what you say, Piet. The
All right.
controversy that has been created.
And I get what you're saying. But so just Joshua, so because your dad was part of the Mochito band, right? The bass player for that. So
Yes.
you were there firsthand. Am I correct? Or if I'm
That's that's correct. I'm not Cuban. I was born in New York, but my father was the bass player. He's retired now, but was the bass player of many of the Afro-Cuban orchestras who were transplanted from Cuba in New York. I personally met Machito, personally met Tito Puente. Cachao was a dear friend of our family. Celia Cruz was a very good friend of our family. So I knew them personally. I sat down at the kitchen table or wherever we were at concerts or whatever we were, barbecues, and I heard firsthand many of the conversations. I agree with almost everything that was said, and I applaud everyone here who's sharing an opinion. I think it's wonderful. I will not take much time on this, but I think it's important to note that it is correct. Salsa definitely is an umbrella term to represent guaguancó, son montuno, mambo, bolero song, all of these wonderful rhythms that we have that come from Cuba. However, in New York, it's very important to make this distinction. Salsa is most associated with Fania, and Fania was created by both Johnny Pacheco and Jerry Masucci. Jerry Masucci was a lawyer, an attorney, an Italian attorney, where Johnny Pacheco was a Dominican-born musician whose father was the lead orchestra down in Dominican Republic. They transplanted to New York. They fell in love with Afro-Cuban music in Cuba. And then in New York, they brought together, I need to point out, during the Nuyorican movement, which is very important to point out because this is when many Latinos went to New York from all over the Latin America, and they combined musicians from Panama, from not so much from Cuba, but from Panama, Puerto Rico mostly. So Fania is a collection of Colombianos and Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, so forth and so on. And it's so important to point this out, and I put this in my movie. A lot of the Cuban musicians did not join Fania. They might have played with them in groups, like a band, a performance, but they did not officially join Fania. Someone like Mongo Santa Maria did an album, and he did an album with Pacheco, but that he was not part of Fania. Cachao never joined Fania.
And why do you think that was?
Well, of course, I know firsthand what they told me is because their concept of music was very different from what Fania was doing. And I'm not trying to degrade Fania. I give Pacheco, I know him personally. I give him a lot of respect for what he did. Even though I don't agree with his politics, I think what he did was amazing because here we are having this discussion because this word salsa exists.
So
However,
you mentioned Machito. Play with Mario Bauza.
Yes, Mario Bauza was the brains of the entire orchestra of the Machito Orchestra.
Okay, so Machito went to New York in 1939 with Bauza. That's when Bauza got to New York. So here we are, 1939 to 1970. You see where I'm going with this?
No, absolutely. Tino, if you're listening, Tino, I think you have that video. Now would be a good time to play that Charlie Rodriguez video that I showed, that I sent to you. If you have that, that would be great because this will help us help this conversation along. Angelo, if that's okay with you, if you can just play that little short video,
fine.
I think
that's fine.
that will help us a lot.
Right.
Okay, just give me 1 second here because this is on.
And then that's it. We're gonna get to you real quick because I want to talk about the dance aspect of it as well and how that's important for. But go ahead, play the video. So why don't you tell everybody what the video is exactly? This video is, Joshua.
Absolutely. So what we're about to see is this is Charlie Rodriguez. He was the tresista of Fania All Stars. By the way, I recorded with some of the Fania musicians. They're very talented. So this is Charlie Rodriguez in one of my movies, and he's just giving a very short description of why for him, the word salsa doesn't work. Even though I respect the word, I respect what it's done, but it's important to hear from the legends who came before. So, Tino, whenever you're ready.
It's gonna take a few minutes to download to my phone, unless it's on YouTube. I can share my screen.
That's okay. Maybe we can go to Edson in the meantime.
Yeah, let's go to Edson, and then we can come back to it.
All right. So Edson.
Go, Alex. Alex wanna point something else.
Well, what I wanna do is go to the beginning, to ground zero. And
I'm sorry, Alex. I don't mean to cut you off. Before you mention that, can we go back, because some of the people out in the audience might not know what you're referring to.
okay,
But the reason why Cuban music in the Americas stopped in the 50s is due to obviously the Cold War, Fidel Castro taking over in the regime, and the fact that people who were born maybe between the 50s and 60s and are, let's say, dancing in the 70s, they have never heard this music before. They think it's coming from New York, and it's actually like you're saying, it's a appropriation, right? Like with what a lot of people do today in pop music, they take, like you were mentioning, rap, which is generally comes from the Black community, and then now you have everybody kind of doing it, and it kind of makes a mockery, of it when you see it in commercials. So that's basically what you're talking about. Am I correct on that?
yeah, exactly. So, this music has its roots definitely in Cuba, and it goes back to the 1800s. We're not even talking about modern history, my friends. We're talking a century back. From what I gather, and maybe Edison can attest to that, 1868, de Baracoa was where the first sounds were coming out as el son cubano, which was mixed with changui, which is a style back in those days. So it was la clave, la guitarra, la maraca, güiro, el bongo, y the marimbola. Let me see.
Marimbola.
Exactamente.
La marimbola.
La marimbola. And that's an instrument from Africa, totally from Africa. If you ever seen it, you play it with your fingers. So that was the base of el son montuno originally. And the first people who made it popular, el trio Matamoro, is we got to say that they're the ones who popularized el trio Matamoro, Son de la Loma, all that stuff. So it goes way back. And what I understand is that during the Spanish War, when the United States went into Cuba and liberated Cuba, and then they threw the Spaniards out. Then they didn't want the soldiers to create segmentations, so they translated some of the soldiers from Oriente to La Habana, and from La Habana to Oriente, and that's how the music crossed over. In Havana, you had another sound, which was guaguancó was invented in La Habana. El son montuno was invented in Oriente, Santiago de Cuba, and that's how it got meshed. It's a little bit more complex than that, but we don't have time to go into all the details. But that's what I understand the beginnings of this whole music genre is.
I'm glad you brought that up, because from what I researched, a lot of it had to do with the fact that in the United States, dancing was becoming popular. It's more of a social thing. You have the foxtrot, you have ragtime and stuff like that. And the Cubans wanted to kind of have that sort of vibe in Cuba también, and they had the trios and stuff like that, that's when, like people, excuse me, people like, Ignacio Piñero, Maria Teresa Vera, came up with the Sexteto Occidente, and then later Piñero did Sexteto Nacional. And that's the stuff that we know now as trio, right? Because there was a lot of vocal harmony, not very much percussion. If there was percussion, it was bongo, and then of course the singers had the maraca and the guiro and stuff like that. So, a lot of it was really just to, for social dancing and to have a good time, like they were kind of seeing in the United States, and them bringing that aspect, like you said, with the soldiers. And then, the musicians were also playing that kind of music, and so it all kind of blended, just like you said.
But Ignacio was the one who innovated it, because he went from a trio, he added trumpet and he added bajo.
The double bass.
La lingua was taken out.
Maria was the one that convinced him to learn how to learn double bass. She was the one. She was like, "Hey, why don't you learn bass?" And then once she left the group is when he added the trumpet, and then they did the sexteto or the septeto nacional, because
and Ignacio loved rumba. He used to go to all the in Havana. He used to go to all the lo bembe y todas esas cosas. He loved it. He loved the rumba sound. So he also brought that rhythm. He changed the rhythm a little bit too.
Yeah, it was a little bit. He made it a little bit more upbeat, and more so because it was. I think to me, it's more. When we think of it in today's terms, we would call it either bolero or bolero cha. Algo así, because it's very ballad-like, But nowadays, and especially when Arsenio came around and did the son montuno, when he added the montuno aspect to it, where there's más movimiento, and syncopation, then
right.
that's when you really got the tempo up and stuff like that.
Well, one of the things I was gonna, and Edson, and you can attest to this. One of the things that I know that we always talked about is how religion has played a factor in music and dance for Cuba. So maybe you want to give about, because me and you always talk, you always tell me about this style, and the gods that they are, that they're basically doing the music to. So maybe you can enlighten how's that embodied the music,
Yeah.
and how is that is.
No, I mean, for me, if you ask me about salsa, you cannot deny that salsa exists. Salsa was created in New York. Now, what are the origins of salsa? We go back to Cuba. So montuno, what we are just talking about. But it's a fact that the word salsa was not originated in Cuba. Salsa means a mix of stuff. So that word was originated in New York, specific in the Bronx, in the Bronx area. En el barrio, yeah. So, but el son cubano, which is the strongest of all of the rhythms that what the salsa umbrella, son cubano and rumba. El son tiene la clave, y we call son cubano is the father and la rumba is the mother. So that's what we call in dance, in el movimiento, in the movement. But son itself and rumba itself are also names that was put by Cubans at that time. But if you go back, what is the origin of rumba or son? Go back to Africa or back to Spain. So everything have also another origin. And if you go back and back and back and back, the clock.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
What happened for me, I am very young. I don't know the story deeply of salsa itself. I can tell you what I can see is Cuba itself is a very divided country. If you talk about politics, also if you talk about regions in Cuba. Cuba itself, you can see people who live in the east and the people who live in the west. The accent is not the same. We speak completely with the same words, but different slangs, different accents, different everything. So back there, I'm talking about in the 20s, it was no radio. It was no way to see what they were doing in the different areas of the island. And the music traveled by word, by feet. It's not by internet or by nothing. It's just, but some people who travel in a horse and they stop in another country and they share what they know. So that's what I believe that happened. I am imagining that time, no nothing, but the music exists and the dance exists. And also, everything you have to see it, everybody have their own perspective point. If you see it from here, or if you see it from Puerto Rico, if you see it from New York, if you see it from Cuba, because Alex was talking about these old guys, but these old guys that were in New York, there is another old guys that were in Cuba, and it's another old guys that were in Puerto Rico or in Colombia, which is another of the country with a lot of history with the music. I think after Cuba, the other two countries who was getting this rhythm were Puerto Rico and Colombia, and then New York. And
the only reason that New York got that flavor, New York was not a salsa place. New York was jazz. It was other things. But you have Ignacio Pinedo in New York. You had the other gentleman, Mario Bosa, Machito. You have let me see who else was. There was
Xavier Cugat, Desi Arnaz, many of these artists.
New York got the flavor from all the Cubans that traveled to New York. Come on, how else would they have gotten to New York? It's like
so now, before we continue with that, I would want to say in terms of dance. So while this was going on, let's say in New York, also in Cuba, the time never stopped. Even if we don't get the chance to see what was going on there, we haven't said in this conversation the word casino, which is one of the dance style that born in Cuba with these rhythms without the word salsa.
Right, but changui is exactly like salsa. The steps
Changui is exactly like son cubano. Son and changui, we don't know who came first.
Right,
they are cousins, very close cousins.
They are cousins.
But if you dance, when you see the early films from Cuba and you see Casino and you see Changui, it's salsa. It's the steps of salsa.
The son and the changui are dance in contra time, while casino is dance on time.
That's correct.
Now, salsa, you can dance it on time or contra time, which is called the one or the two.
Exactly.
But casino is mainly dance on one. And son cubano and changui are dance on the contra time.
Correct. Absolutely.
I don't like to call it the two of the music because contra time is everything that is 2, 4, 6, 8.
Exactly.
And time is everything that is 1, 3, 5, 7. I don't want to call it one or two.
That's because the real soneros, we start we start on the 8th. You know, that's how we start. We put that ba, kung, ka,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
King, pa. That's exactly it. Yeah.
So, and the clave. La clave de rumba, which is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And the clave de son, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Yeah.
So that
Absolutely.
is very important in
No, I
the
agree.
rhythm of the music and in the dance.
And Edson, that's an excellent point that you bring up. Angela, if I could go back to that question about the dance, I just want to share a very quick story. I must have been about, I think I must have been about maybe eight years old, maybe 9 years old. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and as normal routine in the family, my father was in another city, and he was coming back home. My mother was making spaghetti and meatballs, which was normal at 5 o'clock because they were always at concerts. And I don't know what morning it was, but one morning, Tito Puente and my father come in the house because Puente was sleeping over that night. And and Puente comes in first, and he's carrying his sticks, and he looks so depressed. He looks so upset. And this was near New York City. And my father, he was a bass player, so he had to carry his bass from the car inside. So Puente comes in first, and my mother's, preparing everything, and he just comes in. He says, "I don't understand these people." And my mother looks at him and she says, "I don't understand. What are you talking about?" My father's coming in. He puts his bass in the corner, and he says in Spanish, he says, "Yo no entiendo a esta gente." And my mother says, "What people? What are you talking about?" Puente says again, "I don't understand these people. Do you believe it? I don't understand these people." And my mother, she's starting to freak out, and she's saying, "Well, what's going on?" And my father says, "Esa gente, yo no entiendo a esta gente." So, they're just going back and forth. And my mother's like, "Okay, what happened?" So finally, Puente says, he looks at my father and he says, "I don't understand these people. I'm playing one thing, but they're dancing another." And my mother's, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh." He really, really felt the music. But to talk about the dance, this is a movement that comes from the Orishas. I don't follow the religion, but I'm very familiar with it. So my father, I grew up with all these musicians, and my father, he does a movement that we do in dance. If you're dancing, you do your son, you do your rumba. Now, have you ever seen this movement? This is the, combing up the hair from Cupid Pete. Then you have this, which is the memory that God is above us, right? But then you have El Manicero, where you're giving the peanuts to the people, right? But my father he says something, and he says, "Bueno." And he switches to English, and he says, "Well, if this is what they want, then let it rain." And this is a movement that we do in dance. When we're dancing and we do son, we raise it. A lot of people don't understand the origins of it, but this was done during the religion, that the Orishas, what we were talking about before. And they do this movement, and this is originally calling for the rain. This is originally calling for the gods to come in. Now, we don't follow that. My parents and I, we don't follow that religion. However, that movement is done in rumba, is done in guaguancó when we're dancing in son. You dance mambo, pa, ki, pa, i, ah, and you're calling that. That's the origins of what it is that a lot of people don't know today. And it's okay that people don't know it. But I think it's important to discuss the dance, because music and dance are very, very important.
It's the cleaning. It's what Alec was saying. It's the cleaning. I bring the handkerchief when you.
The cleaning.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Yep.
es la limpieza. And also what Joshua was saying, it's a lot about religion. That Angelo was asking about religion. In Cuba, as is majority of the African religion, but we have also a lot of Catholic people. So until you don't grow a little bit, for example, myself, I don't practice no religion. In my family, my father and my mother, they are English teachers. So me in my house, only books, only pencils, chalks, all that.
Intelectual.
So, exactly. So we don't follow any religion. But as I grow up, is when I start seeing these dances, or in my neighbors' houses, they give these parties of religion, Yoruba, because Africa is also, we have plenty of slaves that were in Cuba that came from different regions of Africa. We have Los Congo in the east of Africa. Tenemos people we have from Haiti, a lot of religion from Haiti. We have los Arara, los Hawakuá, a lot of religion. And all of those religion, they carry their dances and their music.
Yeah.
Arara is played by drums, completely different than the orichas, which is used to los batas. And they play different than palo. And all these music are part of our music today. That a lot of people will call it timba. We call it timba in Cuba. Vamos a botar timba, which is not which is also not a music rhythm. Timba is an expression of energy.
So
That is timba.
I got a question, and you mentioned about the
Sir.
timba and the drums and stuff like that. Because you're talking about Cuba and that the slaves coming in, weren't also slaves coming into Puerto Rico as well?
Absolutely.
And wasn't that how, like Bomba Plena and all that stuff, you know, didn't they have their aspect of that music? And I say Bomba Plena because that's where the African drums played a big part of the culture, the music, right? So what was happening?
They might have been from another section of Africa, because you notice that the rhythms of Bombay Plane are totally different.
Right, but I'm just saying that as far as the African slaves coming into Cuba, there were also African slaves being Puerto Rico as well. It wasn't just
Absolutely.
Oh,
Dominican
and-
Republic, Colombia,
And in
Venezuela.
Brazil, in Venezuela, in Dominican, there
Right,
was Africans everywhere,
right.
everywhere
Well, of course.
in Latin America.
That's why we have in Dominican Republic, the bachata is the Dominican version of the Cuban bolero. The bachata song is
Exactly.
the Dominican version of the bolero song from Cuba. The musical structure is exactly the same. The
But
instrumentation is what is different.
But Dominican Republic has another influence that Cuba doesn't have. Cuba
Absolutely.
has the African and the Spaniards. The Dominican has and they also have French.
French. Mhm.
No, we got the French too in Cuba.
Yeah, we do.
From Haiti.
Yep.
We got la
Cuba
tumba francesica.
Cuban also
And
has
let
a
me-
very
and
heavy
actually-
Russian influence as well.
And if you notice,
You were living in Cuba until what, 10 years ago?
Me?
Yes.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. So as a child, you know that Cuba never stopped evolutionizing. And when the Cubans went to fight in Angola, they brought back Mozambique.
Mozambique, yes. Pilon.
Pilon.
But what I'm saying is, well, I don't know what I say. I was talking about a lot of stuff. That,
Who would have ever known in New York about Mozambique? Nobody in New York knew about Mozambique, because that was right in the middle of the Cold War. The Cold War did not let Mozambique come out of Cuba.
yeah, I'm glad that we are talking about this, because, for example, people like me, and I am lucky to be in the dance school, that I know a little bit of all these rhythms. But even the generations a little bit younger than me in Cuba, they are losing everything in history and knowledge. And it's nothing wrong with that, because in some point we all were young, but it's nobody talking about this in conference or in the internet, or kind of let them know what are our own origins and defend it, you know, because we should be proud of our history of rhythms and music. In Cuba, we did unconscious a lot for the rest of the world in terms of music and sound and rhythm and innovation. But I think thanks to also the umbrella of salsa, that rhythms get to be heard in the rest of the world.
Absolutely. Tino, do you have this video?
Wrong or right, but thanks of that, a lot of people get to hear, or most of the world. And that's where you go to some place that you don't think, and the people are gonna relate those rhythms with salsa.
All right, so we got
Definitely, La Fania took it worldwide. I'm not denying that. UK is undeniable. However, to that comment, I will say this. Ignacio Pineda, Celia Cruz, Los Matamoros, the group that Celia Cruz started out with, La Sonora Matancera.
Sonora Matancera.
All those people, all those groups were traveling all over the world, the world. They were doing their own touring themselves. They went to Colombia, they went to Venezuela, they went to a lot of places. It was a combination of everything. It wasn't just the Fania. The Fania blew it up. Yeah, Fania blew it up. But
Even rumba in Cuba, they are played different in Havana than in Matanza, because rumba came from Havana and Matanza, but that they are played completely different in two cities that are one after the other one. I'm not talking about now Santiago de Cuba, La Habana, that are very far apart. No, I'm talking about Matanzas and La Habana. They are bordered to each other, and the rumba is played different in these cities.
That's correct. It's amazing. I've known so many. I'll be diplomatic when I say this. I'll be very diplomatic. I've known many musicians who have heard the Matancero Guaguancó, and they'll say right out, "No, eso no es Guaguancó," and I'm like, "Wow, it is a Guaguancó. You're just not educated on that subject." But yeah, it's an excellent point that you just brought up. Tino, do you have that video? I think it would be a great time if you could share that from Charlie Rodriguez.
I will share this, but I want to bring up a point too, that one thing we have to make sure that we talk about is that there's a difference between what is musically, let's say, a guaracha, and what dancers consider a guaracha or a cha-cha-cha or a guajira, because a lot of the stuff, is basically son. And the reason why it's called a guajira, is not because the percussion plays anything different. It's more so where the guitar, the piano, and the bass are playing a little bit different. But you can dance, a lot of dancers dance cha-cha-cha and guajira the same. Now, I don't know if there's an actual dance for guajira, but my point is that sometimes, certain, like cumbia, there's cumbia and then there's sonidero. It's really the same thing, but sonidero is a style. It's a type of cumbia. So those are the things that we have to make sure that we're distinguishing.
Absolutely.
Because there's a big difference. When you tell me guaguancó for me as a musician is always in 3/2, and it starts and the bass and the conga answer each other. But in New York, the bass and the conga are together. So boom, 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 boom. But where it should be boom, 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 they're answering each other. So for us, the real guaguancó is where the answer and call between the bass and the conga, whereas, the jazz guaguancó is what we call guaguancó cruzado, because it's
you're talking about
that's the
you're
same
talking
thing
about
as
guaguancó
Dominican
solar.
That's the same. But that's the same thing that happens in Dominican Republic. In Dominican Republic, you've had from the time the merengue was invented to today, you've had probably 10 different variations of how they play the instruments, because each person gave it a new variation, and that's exactly what happened with the guaguancó.
Yeah, because then
innovation.
You have merecumbe. Merecumbe is similar, but it's different, and it's not. And then even the merengue, modern merengue or Puerto Rican merengue is way different than Dominican merengue. You know what I mean? Everybody puts their own flavor, and that's it, but it's all the same.
To Tino,
And we have
to go to
Yeah.
Tino, to go to what you were saying. I'm sorry, real quick. Tino, to what you were saying. I think you're talking about the guaguancó solar. This is the rhythm that Arsenio Rodriguez created, where he took out the rumba clave. You could put it in, but you can also put the son clave, and you have the extended melody, and that makes the bass go on that 8-beat for dancers, the 8-beat or the 4-beat for the musicians. And that's the confusion about the cha-cha-cha. Actually, cha-cha-cha is a musical arrangement. It's not a rhythm. There are 6 different rhythms to which people dance the cha-cha-cha. You have the son montuno if it's slow. You have the guajira son, bolero son, dan son, which is the Afro-Cuban part. And then you have the actual son if it's slow enough. So those are the 6 rhythms that we will dance cha-cha-cha to.
Exactly. So cha-cha-cha is son montuno. But the difference is the way Arsenio did it. It was son montuno because of the instrumentation. So when you add the timbal and when you add the different, you add maybe another trumpet or 2, and then you add the piano, then and then it's faster, right? Cha-cha-cha.
Well, now you're confused. You're confusing that. You're talking about the mambo. What he did with the mambo. And what he did with the mambo, I respect what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. It's just a different terminology. What he did with the mambo is he was adding the trumpets. He added the congas with his brother. His brother Kike added the congas to that, and he replaced one of the guitars with the piano. And he's also the first musician who added the saxophone into Afro-Cuban music, and he doubled up and tripled up on the trumpets. So when he got to that section in the end of the danzón, he dropped the last 40 seconds.
I'm not saying that
yell out, Diablo!
He didn't do cha. His thing was son montuno. I'm talking about when cha-cha-cha came about. I'm not sure who first started it, but the reason
I think cha-cha-cha and Enrique Jorrin was the creator of cha-cha-cha.
Right,
exactly.
And what happened was they just added more instruments and they sped up the tempo, and that's how it became cha-cha-cha, because son montuno tends to be just a little bit slower than cha-cha-cha, and then plus you have the timbal and you have different instrumentation. So really, cha-cha-cha is son montuno or son, but it's just different instrumentation and it's sped up and different interpretations on it. But cha-cha-cha is not a rhythm, it's just a style. And that's the point that I was trying to make.
I'm with you.
Yeah, you can dance with a cha-cha-cha music, song cubano, just it's gonna be way slower, the song. Or you can dance cha-cha-cha with song music, it will be super fast cha-cha-cha.
In la guaracha, the difference with la guaracha is the style that you dance it. The guaracha was really made for the people in the city, the people that didn't dance casino. They dance a simpler step, what we're calling now the Cuban style, which is a very simple step. That's what the guaracha was. That's what it was.
Yeah, la guaracha, el changüí, son cubano, you should dance it a little bit traditional in contra that. And changüí is more with the bouncing of like in a horse. But this is what happened. This is just fast in Havana and Santiago for just put west and east. But in my region, in the center of the island, Camagüey, Villa Clara, Santi Espíritus, there was our traditional dances, which are all from La Guajira, which is el zapateo tradicional, el papalote, Doña Joaquina, those are dances that also have a very countryside style, and they use el tres and the guitars, which is what were introduced also. All the other style take from that rural, ¿cómo se dice? How you say in English? Músicas rurales, that they were not in the city, they were more in the countryside. That use more the body movement, having the feeling of being in a horse, of walking. When you walk in the city, you walk like this. When you walk in the countryside, you're always bumpy road. So all the dances are a lot using the movement of the body. And it's a lot of dances.
That's African. That's African, my friend.
That was actually from Spain a lot.
Caballero de España, yeah.
The African part is completely different. The African, the bouncing, this is just quick. The bouncing from Spain is more from your butt here, and the neck. The bouncing from Africa is more knee to the floor, and it's more the chest.
Yeah, something must be wrong with my phone. I just want to see you do it again.
Okay, Josue, I'm ready with that video if you're ready.
Yeah, please.
What's the
Please.
video?
If you can play this video again, this is Charlie Rodriguez. He was the tresero of Fania All Stars. I recorded with him, and this is what he had to say about salsa, about the origins of salsa. Of course, he would know because he was the tres player for the Johnny Pacheco Orchestra. Johnny Pacheco was the co-creator of Fania.
I'm gonna
Whenever
mute
the video
myself.
start. It's all good. Let's see how this video goes. It's taking a little while to share.
Yeah,
Let's see
of course, now this happened to me last time. So now it doesn't want to share. Let me try one
all
more
right.
time.
All right, that's the problem. You had it in during the test. It worked all right.
During the test, it worked, and for some reason, I don't know why.
It's okay. If it doesn't
Alex.
work, it is what it is.
Alex,
Prieto, yes, sir.
I had a friend that studied with me that the last name was Carmenate too.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Before we lose it.
Fíjate, Josué, déjame decirte una cosa de la música. Hoy en día, casi la mayor parte de la juventud de hoy en día reconoce la música.
All right, so it's not going to work because the buffering is too much. So it's
buffering, yeah,
we
the
don't have
buffering.
to take the time. It's all right. Don't worry about that. Basically, what he's saying in this video is that most of the salseros of this generation are not able to distinguish between the rhythms of Afro-Cuban music. And he goes on to mention the son montuno, the guajira, the guaguancó, just what we were saying before. Me personally, I think it's important to hear from these legends. That's why I created La Época. That's how I met Angelo, and he took me to Chicago to screen
So we can go
my
to your
earlier
website.
versions of the movies.
We can go to your website and see it there, right?
Absolutely, it's in this is from the first movie that I did called the Palladium Era. It was all about the Palladium in New York City. But this is how I met Angelo. We went to Chicago. He took me to Chicago. We screened the movie, but I think it's important. That's why I did La Época, is to hear from the legends themselves. You know, we can all sit around and discuss this, but some of the dancers, I don't know about the United States because I haven't been there for some time, but here in Europe, they are so technical. They think so clearly, and they're engineers here. So when you talk about dance or DJing or rhythms, they want to know specific numbers. This is not like, you know, in the United States where you teach something and everybody's just like, yay, you know, and they accept everything you say because everybody's happy and they're cool. They just want to have fun. Here, they really I'm
Here
not saying
too.
anything
Here
bad.
too.
I know, but here everybody really, really wants to learn because remember, in America, a lot of us, we grew up, I'm Latino, I'm from New York, I grew up with all this, but here in Europe, they didn't have access to that. So here they really want to absorb and learn.
And I think that's the reason why dancers nowadays are so in tune with the Cuban music, because the rhythm in Cuban music, in Cuban salsa, to say the word, is bien marcado. It's very, you know, you can hear the rhythm in the Cuban music a lot more than you could hear it in Venezuelan or Colombian, con Grupo Nietzsche, the softer kind of watered down salsa. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. Here I'm in Europe is the salsa capital of the world, right? When I'm talking about the festival capital, this is the festival capital of the world. You know, Adolfo Indacochea, Juan Matos, you know, we all live here in Europe. A lot of us who originated from the New York groups, we transplanted out here into Europe. And this is the festival capital of the world. I know these dancers. This is what I've been doing for many years. And they truly, these dancers here, when you go teach a workshop, you got 600 people, dancers standing in front of you. They take notes. They listen to what you're saying. They focus on the steps, and they're very, very technical about the steps and about the rhythms. In America, with great respect, I'm American, of course. In America, the workshops are quite different. There's not the same amount of interest in the depth that is here in Europe. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just different. When I went to Chicago, for example, with Angelo, I gave a Q&A. Everything was great. And there was one woman from Budapest, from Hungary. She was the one who was more forthcoming in the questions and the interest. It's not to say anything bad about anybody, but it's interesting that the conservative culture here, where people are very shy, they don't want to talk. But when it comes to something that is so lively, such as Afro-Cuban music, it gives them license and it gives them privilege and permission to open up and dance. And the scene is completely different. This is why I live in Europe. So I think it's important to say that it's important to educate our youth. And this is why I created La Época, was to be able to share the knowledge from the legends. I interviewed a lot of these legends before they passed away, and it's important to say that.
So, Angelo, because you probably have a lot of people watching this live, and you're probably gonna be seeing it on YouTube.
Right.
We're reaching many, many, many different people. So, and Tito Puente Jr. is probably gonna see this.
Yeah. Jose Fajardo as well, Junior. Yeah.
So what I want to say is that by no means do we want to take any credit away from the great ones. The king, Tito Puente, when he was at La Casa del Mambo in 1949, back in those days, they were innovators. They were definitely doing their own thing. And I mean, come on, it was good. You have to give it.
They were master musicians. I personally witnessed Puente. We always call them Puente. I'm sorry, no disrespect if Puente Jr. I'm sorry, Tito Jr. is watching. I always called your father, different. So I'm sorry about that. But I personally witnessed Puente. He showed up with my father, and he forgot the scores. He had like 12 numbers. He totally forgot them. And he asked my father for staff paper. And would you believe, in about less than 40 minutes, he charted every one of the arrangements out by memory, complete memory. It was unbelievable. And I've never seen anybody do that. He knew every single instrument, all the names of the songs, the rhythms, and each note of each chord progression that each of the instruments were supposed to play. He charted everything out in 40 minutes for 12 songs. That's a master musician. So I agree with what you're saying there.
So the same thing, we lost somebody.
Well, I think he probably just stepped away for a second.
So we also have to give credit also to a Willie Colon. Obviously, he was very fundamental and influential in the salsa movement. When he introduced more instrument and made it a big band sound, basically the only one that I can remember in Cuba they had that big sound was Benny Moré. Benny Moré.
Big band sound, Benny Moré, Pérez Prado.
Yeah, Pérez Prado también, but Pérez Prado was more mambo.
Right.
Benny Moré had 4 sax, 2 trombones, 3 trumpets, piano, bongo, congas, and bajo. So very, very much like a Willie Colon.
Mm-hmm.
On the baritone and the tenor saxophones. Yeah, he did a lot.
Well, we're leaving out a lot of people. I mean, when we bring up like Mario Bausa and people like that, we also have to remember Chano Pozo, who influenced Dizzy Gillespie. Dizzy Gillespie was one of the first ones who kind of brought jazz into it. And then Tito Puente even took it even further. And that's one thing that I did like about Tito Puente, is that his stuff was more closer to Cuban music, or the Cuban style, than Dizzy Gillespie, right? And but what he did different, and I think what Cubans frowned upon is that the fact that he integrated jazz and jazz voicings, jazz progressions and stuff like that. If you listen to some of the older stuff like Maria Gallego or Maria Cervantes, you know, and stuff like that, where there's no vocals at all. It's just him playing vibes or the band just kind of, you know, showing off and doing different things. And then Tito Puente also incorporated different styles as well. He didn't just stick to descarga or rumba or cha-cha-cha and stuff like that. He did a lot of different, what would be originally salsa, right? The mezcla that these guys were talking about in the 70s, which was already done by Tito Puente and also Tito Rodriguez.
They were both at the la casa del ¿cómo se llama? La casa del mambo.
Palladium.
The Palladium.
Like Tito Rodriguez.
But you have Cachao, you had Chapotín, Miguelito Cuní, you had el Conjunto Clásico, Miguelito Valdés, Mr. Babalu. He came out of New York and went to LA. He went all the way to Hollywood. Who else?
Or speaking of LA, that's Pancho Sanchez territory over there.
Yes. You also had Larry Harlow.
Larry Harlow.
Okay, but in Cuba you have Fajardo Sus Estrellas before Larry Harlow.
Oh, and then speaking of Cuba, and speaking of jazz, and speaking of jazz in Cuba, you also gotta give props to Irakere with Arturo Sandoval. Yeah, and all those guys over there who actually defied the government and actually incorporated jazz into the Cuban sound and did it so cleverly that they were able to get away with it, you know, and because they didn't want these guys playing jazz. Am I correct, Edson? Jazz was frowned upon, and Arturo Sandoval, along with the clarinet player, I can't remember his name right now, but they invented this style where it was jazz Cuban music, and they did all types. They did Mozambique, they did all different types of rhythms that nobody else was really doing, like in the pop scene, you know, like in New York and stuff like that. They were doing stuff that some of us didn't even know about, because like you said, Edson, there was no internet. And the only way you would know is if you were either there or if they were allowed to travel, which they did. Irakere did travel, and that's how people were like, wow, that's amazing. And I think they sparked guys like me who are into Latin jazz, or even like Jimmy Bosch, who was a Latin jazz guy, and you know, of the modern day. Or even, I bet you Willie Colon probably was even a little bit influenced by that, because he was a jazz guy too.
Y Juan Formel y los Bambán. Juan Formel y los Bambán. He was the first guy who integrated electric guitars and batería.
Yes,
you know, the full set of drums, right, Ed?
Yeah, Juan Formel, and in the jazz part, Chucho Valdés.
Chucho Valdés Irakere.
Yeah, he's one of the monsters. If you ever go to Cuba, you cannot miss a Latin jazz night.
Yeah, so I just want to
whatever
make
you
sure,
find it.
and I'm just going to reiterate what we're talking about to anybody who's coming a little late. I don't want people to, you know, because I'm seeing some comments and somebody is like, oh, some serious fact checking, but if no, and the reason why I'm saying is because we're talking about the culture before there was a genre. And I want to make sure people understand that we're talking about a culture before the genre, because, you know, if you say there's a genre, you know, it's one of the guys is the same thing like house music. And I'm going to reiterate that there was a culture of the dance music before it was even on tracks and records and stuff like that when it came to Chicago house music. It's the same thing when it comes to the music we're talking about, everything. The culture was there way before we had we're calling it a genre of whatever, or the umbrella term salsa, you know. That's, I just want.
Y el soneo viene de España. El lamento del flamenco. Ese es el soneo.
Yeah. So everything, it's a lot of things that came also from Spain. A lot of things. The structure of in dance. I mean, in music, I am not too deeply in the music, But in the dance, a lot of about the structures and the hands movement came to Spain, and el zapateo from the footwork in rumba. I always say rumba is torso, hips, bouncing, Africa, hands, expression, fire from Spain. So it's a good mix. When I'm talking about rumba, I'm talking about jambu, guaguancó, Colombia, jiribilla, rumba mimética.
Yeah.
Rumba mimética, which are all the styles of rumba in music and dance. Some of these already are getting lost, like la jiribilla, because it's very fast. It's almost impossible to dance. We have a dance in Cuba called el manicero, el maní dance, la danza del maní, which basically nobody knows about that dance. Which is really close to capoeira in Brazil. It was a very violent and aggressive dance that you cannot do it because people used to die dancing that dance, la danza del maní. Yeah, it was one guy in the middle trying to knock down the ones at the end, and was only danced by men at that time. Well, at that time, no. The only time, because that dance is what I call extinta. You don't do it anymore.
I got a couple of notes here. My notes, it says, la rumba tiene tres tipos de ritmo, el Colombia, el montuno y el jambú. But inventaron el ritmo martillo and later el toque abacuá. Do you know anything about that? Because have you heard about that?
Abacuá, yeah. Abacuá is a religion.
Okay.
Which I guess I think in music I don't know too much, but I maybe seen a style in the drums that is incorporated from Abacuá, that is incorporated in the general rumba. But in terms of, for example, we don't got a martillo in dance. I don't know in music. In dance, we got the jambu, guaguancó, Colombia, and rumba mimética, which is
what about
you have to dance what they are singing to you. If they tell you, throw yourself to the floor, you throw yourself to the floor in the dance.
What about el guayo en el catá?
Yeah, that's musical instrument. El catá, el guayo is like something that you and make sounds. It's like with holes. And el catá, how you say caña brava.
It's a hollow cane.
The hollow cane. So you put it there and you play with stick. Catá, 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 and then it plays the rest of the music, which is a same rhythm that have the clave, but a little bit faster. The clave go catá, 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 and then the rumba. But the kata is in music. It's not too much transfer in dance.
Angelo, if I can, I'm sorry about that. If I could just interrupt for one moment. Angelo, I think it's important for your fans who are watching. I'm sure that everybody here will agree with me. I think it's important. We respect everybody's opinion. So if you have anybody who's commenting and fact checking, listen, fact check everything here. I think it's important to have discussion. And these are opinions. That's why I feel it's important to be able to discuss and to share what the legends before us shared. So as for myself, I'm open for everybody's opinion. However, when you do fact check, be sure that when you're fact checking that you have facts. It's not just opinion. I think it's very important to say that, because there's a lot of people who fact check against what they believe are facts, but it's only just an opinion. But I respect everybody's opinion, but I think it's important to distinguish fact from opinion. So whoever is sharing,
it was a small fact. I think there was some confusion on Mozambique, and it coming to Cuba in 1975, or coming to Cuba via Angola, but we weren't talking about the war. We were talking about Angolan slaves. So Mozambique came in, and way before the 20th century. So we weren't speaking of Angola war.
Right.
Speaking of Angola as far as them coming to Cuba and slaves and bringing Mozambique. So it's just a little bit of confusion on the conversation.
So I have a question. Which is it? Is it the word coined by Fania to market the sound that they were coming out with? Is it Ignacio Pineda biggest hit, Échale Salsita? Or is it La Hora de la Salsa the radio station had in Venezuela, and all the Cuban groups were going over there, and so they were saying, no, es La Hora de la Salsa, and so every artist that played there, they kind of started coining the music as salsa. Which of the three is it? Because those are the three stories I have.
It's the one that popularized it. It's the person who popularized it. It's not the person who 10 people knew about it. And we're talking about millions of people that these guys.
Yeah, but these are stories. The story about the salsa radio show is from Celia Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
The Ignacio Pineda, Échale Salsita, it's something that I heard in Cuba. And then you have the version from New York and Fania. Which one is it?
Haswa, didn't you show me a record that had, description in the back or something like that was talking about that?
Yeah, that's in my movie. That is an excellent point that you bring up, Alex. It's an excellent question. I think the answers you're going to get depend on politics, and it's going to depend on one's own subjective experience. And I think that's important to say. However, when it comes to Fania, even though I'm not a huge fan of Fania, I have had to be educated because I'm a recording artist. I've recorded with several musicians from Fania, and I have to say, they are extremely talented. They also know the rhythms just as well, and they sound amazing. However, for a lot of dancers and musicians who live in any particular part of the world, they might be educated with something that is different from another part. So from my perspective, yes, I've heard of the radio show. I've heard of what happened in Cuba. I've heard of it all. But in my opinion, I have to give credit to Fania. They sold records from the trunks of their cars. They started with that. Pacheco is a 9-time Grammy award-winning artist. You don't win that many Grammys unless you're worldwide. So I think that we should give credit where credit is due. They traveled to Africa. They traveled all up and down Latin America. They've traveled to Japan. They've traveled all over. So a radio show, I'm sorry, but a radio show in Venezuela or Colombia or anywhere else where a lot of orchestras went, they might have popularized it in that area. However, I think that the Fania, because of their traveling, let's not forget Carnegie Hall, Yankee Stadium, all of that.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree. That's exactly the same way I feel about it.
Josue,
Yes.
so I downloaded the videos to my computer. Do you want me to play the other one that where this guy is talking about? I think it's the second one. This might be Pacheco.
It's probably, if it plays right, yeah, let's try it. Absolutely.
All right. It'll play right. I got it this time. I just didn't have time. Yeah, I was trying something different, but let's try this.
Lo que pasa es que pusimos una... Bueno, la salsa es y siempre ha sido la música cubana. Lo que pasa es que pusimos una influencia de Nueva York a la música cubana. Los arreglos eran un poquito más agresivos. Pero el nombre de salsa vino porque empezamos a viajar por toda Europa, en países extraños, Japón, en África, donde no se hablaba el lenguaje español, el castellano. Y estaban, para no confundir la gente con lo que era un guaguancó, una guaracha, un somontún y eso, pusimos toda la música tropical bajo un techo y le pusimos salsa.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for sharing. Do you have the other video with Charlie Rodriguez, the one that we originally tried to play?
Yep, I got that one.
That'll be excellent video to play as well, if you could, please.
Okay, let me get out of here. What's up? Expand. Y compartir.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the person who invented the airplane was another one, but the one who called it airplane, that is the one that everybody knows the airplane for.
The Wright brothers.
Maybe the original was, I don't know, floating in the air.
The wrong brothers started it, but the Wright brothers.
The wrong brothers. And so, well, you know, in America, that's very common, because a lot of the things that were invented in America, we know it as one person, but it was probably and factually somebody else. Okay, now I'm gonna play this one.
Fíjate, Josué, déjame decirte una cosa de la música. Hoy en día, casi la mayor parte de la juventud de hoy en día reconoce la música movida como salsa. Entonces, se han olvidado de saber distinguir los géneros de los ritmos. Cuando uno puede distinguir el género de los ritmos, saber distinguir lo que es un mambo, saber distinguir lo que es un danzón, lo que es una guajira, lo que es una guaracha. Eso quiere decir mucho. Y entonces, pues lamentablemente, hoy en día, pues, la juventud, mayormente, el único reconocimiento que ellos tienen para todos esos ritmos juntos es la palabra salsa. Para mí, esto no me contesta los detalles de la clasificación de los ritmos que hay en la música. Eso es una fatalidad que tenemos dentro de nosotros, que hoy en día pues se nota bastante entre la juventud, que vemos que a todos los ritmos los llaman con un solo nombre. No saben la distinción de los distintos ritmos que hay en la música. Las personas que pueden definir eso y reconocer cada uno de ellos tienen una dicha que nadie la tiene, por lo menos como la que tengo yo. Que yo sé la diferencia de cada uno de esos ritmos.
Thank you for playing that. I think it's important to hear from these legends themselves. So for your viewers who are watching, you know, you're hearing us, we're from this generation, but this is a gentleman, he just passed away last year. He Puerto Rico, true gentleman. And he was part of Fania All-Stars. He was in Africa. He was in all of these countries that we just mentioned where this salsa was taken. He was a friend of Pacheco, and even he himself disagreed with this umbrella term salsa being used because of what you just heard, because it waters down everything. But I think it's important to hear from these legends. That's why I wanted to share that with you. Thank you, Tino, for being able to share that.
Josue, what if the guys from Fania went to Venezuela and played at that radio show, and that's where they got it from?
It's possible. It's possible. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, so I think one of the things that I want to make sure that everybody understands is that there's a reason why we're having this discussion, because I think we all have played our part. I know Edson, Tino, you, all you guys, we're playing our part because we were trying to keep the culture alive in the world, what's happening now, and we're doing what we can. You know, honestly, between, you know, and I can say respectfully, like in Chicago, we have the Salsa Congress, Chicago Salsa Resita and Saladin. They're doing what they can do, and they're dealing with they're gravitating and capturing a younger generation, which like in the nightclub, I can't get a younger generation because it's the 21 and over. So they're doing their part to get, you know, to bring in the new dancers. And I think for all of us, Edson teaching, you know, you're teaching your casino and you're doing all your stuff that you're doing. We're keeping, besides the dance aspect of it, we're trying to expose the culture of it, because honestly, if we don't do what we're doing that right now, I think this will not last. You know,
Well, correct. That's why I moved to Europe. It's so beautiful out here living in Europe. I'm sorry.
I think
I'm
it's very important. I think it's very important because as a pool director, I have a lot of DJs coming to me and telling me, if I say, hey, I got a brand new salsa track, check it out, listen to it. They'll come back to me and say, who's dancing to salsa? Because their own experience in their own clubs is like, no, we're not playing salsa anymore. The kids don't want to hear salsa. So I'm telling them, no, dude, you have to get out. You have to get out. You know, you have to go visit some other places because there's a few clubs, not the majority. I will say that. And that's why it's important, because it is disappearing. You only get to see it in congresos and maybe one or two clubs in the city, in each city. And that is sad.
Well, that's why I moved to Europe.
I think
because,
I think a big part. I think a big part of the bringing young generation to this music or this dance is have a lot to be with also the live performances of the bands. You know, it's been cities that I include Chicago in these cities, that they don't have access to the live experience to the people. So they, after have that live experience, then I can go to a DJ and have fun.
You can't compare. You can't compare it.
But it's something stronger that now I cannot forget, and I'm gonna find it in clubs and here and there. But you are not gonna get that if you really don't do your homework, like know a little bit about the dance, about the music, and a lot of people take the easy road. Let's dance this or don't dance it until they get that first impression or first experience.
Absolutely. And Angelo, here's
a life.
Angelo.
Life.
You're absolutely correct, Angelo. I got another topic for you for your next webinar. Talk about bachata versus sensual. You know, there's a lot of drama about it. There's also a lot of drama about kizomba versus urban. I love kizomba.
No. It's funny. It's funny you should mention it, because I just called up what's his name, Marco from the Bachata Congress. You know, so I already I'm way ahead of you, man. I'm way ahead of you. Trust me.
No, it's amazing. I mean, I did that. You probably saw that viral video that I did a few years ago, where I actually went to Santo Domingo with my other phone. I had two phones, and on my other phone, I put videos of people dancing sensual, and I showed the Dominicanos. I said, "Mira, esta es bachata," and they're all looking at the video, and I want to show respect because I know people are very sensitive. So I will be diplomatic right now and say they watched the video and they shared their opinions. I'll just say it very diplomatically. In my opinion, I respect all styles of dance, but I do believe in giving them the proper names, the proper titles. And I think it's also important. Kizomba, look at what happened with Kizomba. I'm sorry, we're in salsa, but Kizomba did this. It's going on the same. In the United States, Kizomba is not as big as it is here in Europe, because we're so close to Portugal and Angola. But Kizomba is enormous here. It is bigger than salsa here in Europe. Bachata, and well, I should say sensual, which is this, you know, stemmed like 10% from bachata. It's enormous here in Europe, but it's going to the same category. You know, those of you who are old enough to remember, if you remember the times back in the end of the 90s, merengue, bachata, they were huge, right?
Merengue.
It was
merengasos.
Yeah, merengue, bachata, and salsa. We shared it all together, and then we had to, you know, make room for all of these different genres. Before bachata came in 1998, you go to a party and it was just salsa and merengue. Then bachata came in and there was the struggle, like, oh, I don't want to play bachata as a DJ. I don't want to. And then now you go to a party in New York City, West 46th and Broadway, which is where Club Cachet used to be. They used to have a bachata party every Thursday night. That's how big it became. So here in Europe, we have salsa, we have kizomba, we have bachata, we have casina, which we were talking about before. Tango is huge here. We have all of these different genres.
And you know what's the funny thing about this whole thing is And I remember, because I've been in this game for a long time, and I remember how hard we, myself, and the DJs that love bachata, how we struggle to play bachata in the clubs and to get it on the radio stations, and finally it happened. The same thing happened, even worse. It took longer to get reggaeton played on the radio and played in the clubs. They would not accept it. But I was part of that movement that you know, I wanted to see reggaeton. Y Tito dijo una verdad. At the beginning, he said, the real rhythm, would that be Kuduro, Tito? The reggaeton beat?
No, oh, you Tino. I was like,
Oh, perdón, Tino, no, Tito, no, Tino.
reggaeton. I'm gonna blow people's minds out there who are watching in. Reggaeton is Mozambique. It's the Mozambique, and if you watch a lot of the Latin jazz guys, especially a lot of the the non-Latinos out there, the Mozambique beat, and if you go to YouTube and look it up, that's reggaeton borrowed it not so much from Mozambique because they probably didn't know, but they borrowed it from Colombia, which we know it as cumbia, but cumbia is a variation of Mozambique. It's just that the instruments are different compared to what we would hear in reggaeton, right? But you can play reggaeton or you can play Mozambique, and it's often played in a drum set, and that's where it comes from.
It's an excellent point that you bring up. We have to, I know we're talking about salsa, but in this particular segment, when you bring up reggaeton, we can't forget to mention that reggaeton now is not what it was back when dancehall reggae was really on the scene. And we're talking 1989, 90.
Like,
who can forget El General, Nando Boom, Tu Pum Pum, Mami Mami No Me. You know, this was completely different. Then you have Barrington Levy from Jamaica. You have what's his name from Jamaica, Red Fox. Then you have Buju Banton, of course, a dancehall reggae from Jamaica. So all of that influenced. A lot of people don't know original reggaeton, reggae español came from Panama, because we had a lot of Jamaicans living in Panama. My father's from Panama, and we speak Patois, which Patois is the language of the Caribbean. That's why when the Jamaicans say, we have the same.
Is the French and the English together, right?
Creole and English together.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I wanted to bring up a point. And part of it is to give credit to the DJs and especially Prieto, because I kind of disagree as far as live salsa music in Chicago. I think Chicago is one of the biggest live salsa scenes. Unfortunately, it's not huge, but when it comes to United States, in Chicago almost every day you can go to before COVID, you can go to a salsa club or you can go to a club and hear a live band in Chicago.
But but I was responsible for that.
That's why I wanted to give you credit, because you have Tuesday live music, Friday live music, Saturday live music. There were times where you had it on Sunday. And throughout your whole career, you probably had live music almost every day. And before the COVID, there were, almost 7 days a week that I can think of, on Wednesday, I can't forget my own freaking salsa night, Wednesday at the Drake, right? Seriously, Chicago has a big salsa scene.
But Tino, I'm going to tell you something. And I agree with you about the live music, and I agree with you. But Edson and I had this discussion. So what was the name of the Cuban group that was at Martini? What was that we seen perform live?
Manolito Simonet y su trabuco.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Manolito Simonet.
Wait.
Los trabucos.
Right. They perform, and I'm going to tell you something. And I told every musician, dude, if you haven't seen a Cuban music perform compared to what a salsa band performs, completely opposite, different. And I'm talking about these guys who do a song for 25 minutes and the crowd doesn't care. The crowd isn't, you know, and back to the dancing part. They're not there trying to perform. They're there enjoying the music, and they don't get. They're not caring about how long the song is. They're enjoying the music, and the band are performers. Everyone that's performing, I mean, every musician is performing as well. So the sax guy is.
Angelo, sorry, Tino. I'm sorry what I said about the live performance in Chicago, but what I'm referring was in terms of bands that are not local. Bands,
yeah.
You know, for example, if you go to local bands, and this is not the respect for any of the bands that are in Chicago, but it's very hard to listen the same tracks that you already listen when a DJ play it. Are the traditional, the ones who give the pass for the next. But when you bring somebody or straight from Puerto Rico, straight from Cuba, straight from another part, it's completely new sounds, new lyrics, new letters. In Cuba, every band that their own repertoire of music. That Bam Bam doesn't play any of the Manolito or Pupilos que son or Charanga Habanera. They don't play the same music. So when you bring one of them, it's a whole night of different music or a different approach to the music.
Yep.
Of course. I think it's
Any
important
of the
to
bands.
mention.
That's what I was trying to refer about bringing, and also when you advertise, here is gonna play this band from outside of Chicago, I think will bring more people to the event.
It's so funny now. Edson is trying to be diplomatic.
and he makes a good point, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because Edson may or may not know, and people in the audience who are listening may or may not know, that the reason why, and this is the bad thing, yes, you can have a salsa band, you can go see a salsa band just about every night, you know, pre-COVID, right? But the problem is there's not enough money to let them do what they want to do. So what happens
is what I'm doing. Money.
Right. So a lot of times they leave out a bongo cero.
Now I can do this, right?
they leave out different things. And I'm gonna plug my band, Tino and the Latin Swing Factor, is the main reason why I created my band the way I did. Because you're absolutely correct. I got tired of hearing bands, and not all of them do it, but more so back in the day they did. But I got tired of playing the same music or hearing the same music, and people got tired of. Because Prieto, a lot of times, Prieto hires us, and then somebody says, "Hey, can you play Rebellion?" And I go, "No, but I'm sure Prieto will play it." You know what I mean? Because we have our own style. I make my own arrangements. If I have my band is small, because I know that the budget usually is low just about anywhere that we get booked. So I arrange my band just like they did in Cuba for a certain sound coming from a sextet or a septet, and I do things according to that, according to that size of a band. I don't try to do too much. And that's the problem. When you're trying to do gran combo and you don't even have a saxophone, how are you going to do gran combo sin saxophone? How?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's very smart. That's very smart what you're doing.
Absolutely. You're following the conjunto format.
You have, and that's what I try to explain, because it's another conversation, and I think Prieto would be worth having this one at another time. The reason why I wanted to bring this up as well is the reason why it is the way it is in the salsa in the United States is because we're not working together.
There's no budgets. There's no budget, really. What band do you know that is doing promotions right now to get a song out?
We have at least, I can name four or five salsa bands right now that in Chicago that just released new salsa tracks within the last few months. and they're releasing more. I'm going to be releasing some, Humboldt Park Orchestra. So it's not about that. It's about the fact that we're not on the same page, right? Me and Prieto, we talk a lot, probably a few times a week, because we have, if we're going to be doing things together, we have to have a game plan. We have to be on the same page. Prieto's really straight up with me. If there's an issue or if he has a concern about something, uh-oh.
It's just a joke. I just wanted to say it's my new song.
Pero, you know,
I just recorded it 2 weeks ago.
But now that,
Right.
now that you're talking about this, check this out.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say this. I own a record pool, and I am the president of the Association of Record Pools in America. There's 1,300 DJs there willing to play your music. If you only sent it to us.
Exactly. And that's my point. My point is I know this. The other band leaders, they think that the DJ is the enemy. Not all of them. But, you know, but the majority of band leaders say, you know, DJ, you know, blah, blah, blah. They're the enemy because they took our jobs, right? That's not what it is. That's not, we're supposed to be working together, because when
we're there to help you.
Right. When we stop playing, who is going to play while we're on break? Who is going to play after we're done for the night and stay till 2, 3 in the morning? I know I don't want to stay till.
And if you don't make music, what the hell are we going to play?
Exactly.
So
and
I got
all music.
I got a flip side on that though. But remember, budget also depends on who's going to pay for what at the entrance of the place. So for instance, I can say, hey man, I'm going to bring in live bands, you know, and I've done it before. I brought in 3 live bands, right? And I'm charging $20 at the door, you know, and then what happens? My numbers get dropped because nobody wants to pay $20 at the door. So and again, it goes back and forth because.
Bro, that is a misconception. And you know why I say that? Because I play in the Sonora circuit, okay? And these Mexican and South American people charge $30 to $60.
Agree? Well, no. Okay, so what did you just say?
And it's full.
Oh, trust me, I dude. The banda events, you know, that's 1,000 people paying $50 a piece.
But it's
no
not.
problem.
And the thing is, what they do is similar to what they did back in the Palladium days, right? You don't have salsa all night. You don't have merengue all night. They bring a tamborazo, they bring in banda, they bring in rock en español, they bring Sonora Santanera, which is old school. They bring in Sonora Dinamita, Sonora Tropicana, all these different types and mixes of music and stuff like that. But the reason why they're able to do that is because these guys have control of the industry, or of the, I guess let's say industry for lack of a better term. And that's why, I mean, Prieto, what you do is different from any other promoter, because you have multiple venues, you do a lot of promotion and marketing. You understand that if you take a small loss over here, but but you got this night where you know you're going to bring in all your money, stuff like that, and it really matters. You know, all that stuff really matters in promoting and knowing your audience and stuff like that. And if we worked as musicians, as bands, if we work together with the DJs and also with the salsa instructors, because my wife, obviously, Angelo, you know her, she's a salsa instructor too, although she doesn't do it at this time, but she's been dancing salsa. She worked with Harawan Salsa, Rico Mangrum and stuff. And she always gives me advice. She said, Tino, our songs are too long. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I'm a salsa dancer. I'm a dancer. Once it gets past 7 to 8 minutes, you know, we get tired on social dancing. You know what I mean? From the social dancing aspect and stuff like that. And it really helps me as a band leader, you know what to do because I'm there. I'm not there for me. I'm there for the dancers. You know what I mean? If I play and nobody's on the dance floor, you know, I'm not going to be sitting there and saying, well, you know, they have a problem, blah, blah, blah. No, the problem was with me and with the band. I mean, either I selected the wrong song or the arrangement's not hitting in this type of environment because it's more of a Puerto Rican crowd versus more of the Drake mixed crowd, you know, Europeans and stuff like that. That's something that I think that we really need to focus on as band leaders, DJs, salsa instructors. And here in Chicago, we do have we have that. And I think that that's what United States in general is missing. is that we don't have all three of the aspects working together to create this huge event that people are going to pay $20-$30, you know.
And there's another issue too that I've heard many club owners complain about, and I always have to argue for this thing because they say, no, we don't want the dancers, we don't want the congresos because they don't spend any money at the bar, they're always dancing, and when they come to drink something, it's water. They ask for water. So I say, look, you gotta have the dancers. They're the ones who are making the scene. They're gonna attract the rest of the people, you know. So there's issues, you know, there's issues.
And that's where salsa instructors come in, because when they open up these dance schools, they should also know that, hey, we need to support the scene, you know, and also not just have events here for $5 or whatever it is that they do in the dance studio, but also promote and teach their students, you know, hey, this is what proper social salsa dancing is about, or tropical dancing is about. You go out, you know, you pay if you have to, if you know, and respect the club and buy a couple of drinks or buy a meal. That's something that we have to teach people, you know, salsa instructors, band leaders, DJs, and teach people this is the proper etiquette, right? We lost all that etiquette. Remember when everybody used to dress up and look bien vestido?
In suits, yeah.
You know what I mean? And now, guess what? You know, like, people, but guess what? Prieto said, hey, you know, you're gonna pay $20 to get into the Drake, and the Drake is a fancy place, so you know, it's wise that you dress up. And you think people come in gym shoes every once in a while, but they pay that $20 because we trained them. Prieto has trained them. If you want this ambiance, if you want a live band here every other time, this is what it takes. The people who want it show up. The people who don't respect or want it, they go somewhere else. You know, there's plenty of clubs that are on the north side of Chicago that cater to people who want to wear gym shoes. You know what I mean? And we can all work together. There's room for everybody, you know, but we have to, you know, kind of train people on that and not fight about it and say, oh, well, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. You know, and say, well, you know, because it's true. Exactly what you said, Alex. No, everybody puts their music on iTunes, Spotify, all this crap. But do you think that they send it to DJs? Probably not.
They don't.
That would be my first move.
Can I say something in that point? Just like here. Don't think because the bands that we know from Cuba are the only bands that are in Cuba. Cuba is full of bands that we don't even know the names. They are very small and they all play great music, but only few of those bands are the ones that create their own records. They have better musicians, better graduate students from the school, on and on. But every of those bands have one thing in common. They have to succeed in the worst scenario in Cuba, that is La Tropical, which is the cheapest place to go, but gets thousands of people. And I'm not talking about people from the highest alta sociedad. I don't know how to say it.
Society.
They are people that don't have the money to go probably to a live event in one hotel or a private event. These bands, in order to succeed and get to that point, they have to go through to those states first. And it takes a while for them to get famous, but once they made it, so you get great shows and great records for the whole country. So it's also La Timba. I don't know if we talk about Timba today, but Timba is an expression of energy that brings every player of the music. Whatever you play the trumpet, if you play the piano, if you play los timbales, you play it with energy. You play it with, sometimes I go to concerts in Cuba. I don't want, I don't need to dance. I just want to watch and hear. Because they are performing. They are not just playing the piano. They are you know, playing the piano. And those things, believe it or not, makes a whole difference for the experience of the dancer and the audience in general. And I think it's the same for the dancers. It's not the same dance just because somebody say, hey, can I dance with you? No, if you're gonna dance, really dance a full all that space.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
all the
showmanship.
all the new crowd that is coming and watch, they want to repeat.
Yeah, that's showmanship. That's what attracts people to live entertainment. You cannot match that with records.
Absolutely. I just, Angelo, to your point, and Tino, I think you brought it up as well. Maybe Alex, you brought it up. Everybody brought it up. It's so important to say that this is a collective effort. This has to be a collective effort. Now, to the instructors who are watching, if you're a salsa, bachata, kizomba instructor who are watching, listen, I've been teaching for 18 years, and it's so important for you to know that you have a very important role in this. There's a difference between teacher and instructor. There are many instructors who are in this scene because they love the attention, they love the power. They get up in front of people and they instruct the dancers in what to do, but they're not inspiring the dancers. And I think this is a big issue. If you're watching it, if you're an instructor, I think you have more influence than you might imagine. And if you use that influence for good, and if you use that influence to inspire your dancers to have etiquette, to dress a way, to behave a certain way. Why are there not enough instructors who are educating men how to be gentlemen and to treat ladies like ladies instead of like property, doing a triple spin on the dance floor if she doesn't want to do a triple spin? Where are the instructors teaching the ladies that they can also go up to the men and ask them to dance? Is this here in Europe? I love Europe so much. Why? Because the women ask the men to dance just as much as the men ask the women to dance. Here there is a more etiquette. There's more culture. There's more propriety. I'm not saying it's better or worse than America, but here there is a little bit more of that influence. But then here you have a lot of these instructors in Europe as well. They just love the attention, and they're in this scene for the wrong reasons. Males are in the scene to get the girls, you know, and the ladies are in the scene. And it's to any feminists who are watching, I feel you. It is very sad that a lot of female instructors cannot seem to make it on their own unless they're first paired with some lead. And I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not saying that's only the way it is, but it seems to be very often like that. But there are some women who have made it on their own. I think it's so important for instructors to notice and to take charge of this. Be a positive influence for your dancers. Teach about the rhythms, teach about etiquette, teach about being gentlemen. Ladies, please teach your students who are new to this scene how to protect themselves, how to be safe on the dance floor. And the last point I just want to make, here coming to Eastern Europe, I live in Eastern Europe, which is very different from Western Europe. Here, it's very conservative. And I had a huge culture clash when I came here, dressing like an American, you know, dressing like everything, no offense to Americans, but, you know, I came dressed like an American, just, you know, oversized clothes, relaxed. I'm American from New York. Everything is, oh, I had a huge shock when I came here. Why do you think I'm wearing a jacket? You know, I've learned, and somebody taught me, spend about 500 euros go clothes shopping with 500 euros. And with that 500 euros, you're going to buy 3 suits. And at those congresses where you go with those 3 suits, you're going to find festivals organizers who love to see that you're there because you're attractive, because you're eloquent in how you behave and speak, and because you are attractive in terms of how you present yourself, and you're going to attract more people to want to see you. This is one of the secrets of Europe. So instructors, you're very powerful, and you're in very powerful positions. And I really hope that there are more instructors who become teachers and learn to inspire. I just wanted to say that as diplomatically as I can.
All right, so guys, we're coming up to the 2-hour mark on this, and so I thank everybody. Any closing remarks that you guys want to say to this discussion?
Hi to my students. I want to say hello to my students that are watching. Everybody that I know that is there, sitting there, a big hug. See you after Corona.
Closing remarks from me. Thank you for watching, all of you. Go to laepocafilm.com. You'll have a lot of footage, documentaries, original music. Teach online. This is what I do. This is what I've done. I've been doing this for many, many years. So laepocafilm.com. Angelo, thank you so much for having me. And to all of the other guests, thank you so much.
Tino.
Well, in closing, thank you everybody, Angelo, Alex, Josue, Edson. It was this was a lot more pleasant of a conversation that I was anticipating, which is great. You know what I mean? Because this can be a difficult topic for people. You know, where does salsa come from and all that. And you know, at the end of the day, I mean, I think we all agree that it comes from Cuba, and it's just everybody kind of put their own little style to it. And right now, that's really, it is kind of sad that, you know, right now we only have maybe a couple of different styles that are really popular or played on the radio. But I'm glad to see, especially some of the local bands that are bringing back other styles like conjunto, you know, and salsa dura with tamboriquiri. That he's bringing back some real hardcore, great salsa. And you know, I appreciate where salsa comes from. I appreciate all you guys' opinions. I did learn a lot, especially Edson, man. That was some good stuff, bro. Yeah, man. I love it. I love it.
Man,
everybody.
Dance
Mhm.
is
Yeah,
very
man.
important. Dance is
I've
very
seen
important.
you many times, and it's too bad that the next time I see you after this COVID, I'm gonna take a minute to, you know, to talk to you and get to know you, because
Yes.
yeah, man, that's some good stuff, everybody, and I am humbled to be here with all of you knowledgeable people, and thank you, Priato, for bringing me.
Thank you. Alex?
So I like to echo Tino's closing, and I also would like to add that you know, this is it's not really to create controversy. You know, the reason that we've done this, it's, you know, I love it when we do something like this because I come here humbly and I leave with so much knowledge from you guys that it has enhanced my knowledge. And that's what I get. That's what I love about something like this. So for everybody watching, my hope is that they got the same thing. It's not about creating polemics or creating controversy or saying that this is better than that. It's really about learning. And that's what it's all about, the unity of everybody. I have to commend everybody. The conversations was excellent. There was no complications. I love it. And I want to say to all the musicians and all the groups and all the bands recording salsa out there, please don't see the DJ as your enemies. We are your friends. We want to promote your music. And it's so easy to do it because you don't even have to produce a CD anymore. It's just an MP3, as long as it's a good quality MP3. If anybody wants to know how to reach all these individuals, please do not hesitate to send me an email to salsamania.promotions@gmail.com. That's salsamania.promotions with an S @gmail.com.
Maybe you can put it into the comment section. That'd be great.
And I'll be glad to give you all the players that are willing to help you guys with your music. I know it's hard, so we're there to help you and just see us as a friend, not a foe.
All right, guys, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that joined. I know there were a lot of people. It was a little overdating because there was a lot more than I usually do because I'm always doing a one-on-one. But this was great. I think we talked about what we need to talk about, and everybody that as a guest, I think I picked a really good group of guys to exactly talk about what needed to be talked about. with this. So
Uh,
thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Angelo, I need one more second to be diplomatic. I see that somebody named Estela Cohen wrote a comment on your post about something that I said. She said, Josue, here in Chicago, we ladies go to get our guys. I think that's fantastic. I wasn't making a blanket statement. What I was just trying to say is that instructors have a lot of power, and I think it would be great if instructors think of themselves as teachers, because there's a distinction and can use that to influence. So totally trying to be diplomatic and accept everybody's opinion.
Estela is a great student. She follows everything. She's wonderful person.
She's a big
I do in my classes when I do Rueda de Casino, especially ladies go with ladies. We switch places. If I don't have everyone even, I go as a lady. So it's a mess, my classes, but we have fun and we all share positions and everything, except Rumba. Except Wawanko.
Absolutely.
Except Wawanko.
Absolutely. Angelo, just a suggestion for you. I'll say it live. If you're going to do another webinar, I could get some Fania stars onto the webinar and do it live.
That would be phenomenal. That would be phenomenal. We'll definitely communicate on that. All right.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Guys, nice to meet you, all of you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I learned a lot because I am not too much from the music side. I learned a lot today with you guys. That is gonna go with me my whole life.
The feeling is mutual.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Likewise.
All of you. Thank you, Angelo.
Hey,
See you guys.
I watched your trailers on YouTube. Excellent documentary, La Época. I recommend that everybody go to YouTube and look it up, watch the trailers, and then we can't wait for the full movie, bro. However we can get it, I suggest everybody to get the full movie if it's not out already, to get it when it comes out.
The trailer was put up 7 years ago. So yeah, the movie's been out for 7 years. Thank you very much for that great point. It's absolutely, thank you very, very much for that. That's why I did the movies. Angelo knows, because he was actually, I think Chicago was the 3rd or 4th city that I ever went to screen my original movie. So thank you very much for that, for talking about La Época. La Época, the original versions, there's 5 different films. The first film is about the Palladium. So I interviewed many of the legends who already passed away. They passed away in the last year.
And that wasn't just musicians. Yeah, it was also the dancers too, right?
It was musicians and dancers, right? I have Eddie Torres, Frankie Martinez. I have many of the top dancers in the world from the New York area, and I have even Alberto Valdez, who's from Cuba. He lives in Europe. I have Alian Ramirez, who's very respected, also from Cuba. Franklin Diaz. I got Johnny Vasquez, all the Antu, classic mambo. I got Cuban Pete, the man who originated this before he died.
Oh, yeah,
I've got all the dancers and the musicians in my movie. So absolutely check them out. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I wanna say something to all the dancers that are watching. Just like in music, you have different rhythms, cha-cha-cha, mambo, song. In dance, we have the same. So if you want to understand more your style and you want to get farther, you have to also learn each of these styles of rhythm in order to have more spectrum of your style of salsa or the Cuban style of rhythm, because we incorporate all these individual dancers in that music. That's all.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
All right, guys.
Well,
thank you.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning here.
Oh my God. Thank you.
It's for you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Yes.
Eso. Mira, viste.
All right, guys. I'm going to sign out. Thank you.
All right. Peace out.